I thought this video was going to be easy. I did. I thought that I would be able to get this video out, read the book, do all this stuff in passing. When I heard that the 20th anniversary edition of Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Life had been published, I told myself, oh, that would be a great video to make, something I could contribute to the community. I'll be able to read it within a month. I told myself that exactly to the day 4 months ago from today. This was not a project I could just do in passing. This was one of the densest books I've ever read in my life. If I could have you take away one thing, it'd be don't let the thin stature of this book confuse you. This book is a tomb. It is an absolute tomb. But it's not because it's like some 500-page wordy textbook mass. In fact, for a book authored by Stephen Hayes, I was enormously impressed by how tight the writing was in most areas, and I think that was largely because of the second author. But this book is a tomb because of how much material it has, not just in its writing, and it covers a lot, but in how much exercises and practices and how much work it presents that requires you to put the book down. There's so much carte blanche in this book, just like blank sections with lines for you to write your answers to questions or reflect on experiences or practices, and that's part of what took so much time with this book. And that led to a very different experience the second time around reading it. There's a quote I like to keep around. It's by a poet, and it goes something like, "Life is a process of being defeated by greater and greater things." And it comes to mind for me. I don't fully know what that quote means, but I'm very glad that this book had, in a way, defeated me. And I really spent the time to work with it, practice with it, and integrate it into my life. Or spend the time to do so. You know, this book taught me about acceptance and commitment therapy as a self-practice, as something I use within my own life. But this book also taught me about ACT in terms of a treatment modality with a lineage and a community of people who have been contributing to it across time. You know, I was 3 years old and 3 months old, 3 years and 3 months old when this book was first published. And so to be able to reflect on that and open this book up and see how much has withstood, I don't know, the test of time, that was really cool. It was like opening a time capsule. And seeing how relevant it still felt for my life was just a cool experience to have. And so in this video, I wanted to share about my experiences going through the first acceptance and commitment therapy self-help book, this time really giving it the time it deserves. There are many things that I could say about this book, but one of the first things that comes to mind is that this book is just weird. It's weird like a person can be weird. Like with most books, the little oddities and weirdness about an individual person gets combed out by drafts and editors and whatever it is, that these things get taken out, and then you have this kind of more manufactured, controlled experience. This book still felt like it was edited and polished, and there was beautiful writing, and there was good craft that was put into it. And I felt like the authors were always ready to be a little bit dangerous. We're always ready to step out of convention and just do something odd. And one way that came across was in this archaic writing style, where in one paragraph you'd have something brilliant that just speaks to the heart of the masses, that anyone can understand, that's so salient, and then the next paragraph be quite incomprehensible to the lay reader. I'm going to give an example here, okay? So this is at the bottom of page 10. Paragraph 1. We all carry painful hidden secrets. We tend to put on shiny, happy faces, pretending that everything is okay and that life is quote unquote all good. But it isn't, and it can't be. To be human is to feel pain in ways that are orders of magnitude more pervasive than what other creatures on the planet Earth feel. Beautiful, salient, powerful. This is the middle of the next paragraph. So, next paragraph right over. In the middle, it goes, relations that verbal humans learn in one direction, they drive in two. Over the past 25 years, researchers have tried to demonstrate the same behavior in other animals with limited and questionable success so far. What the fuck? Like, what are we doing here? It's like we were just like dancing and there was like a move and there was like a flow and we were in a moment and then like you just start doing something. And like, I mean, I get I've read other ACT books before. I know what the point they're trying to make here. But that was interesting. You did not have to broach that territory in the way that you did that right there. So, odd. Not all of the material in the book is like that. In fact, I'd say it's only just a few chapters where that's really kind of smelly and you're like, whoa, that was really overt. But in many sections, the writing is quite tight. It's something that I really enjoyed about this book is it's one that I felt like was such a strong reference book. It was something that I wanted to come back to a lot because so many of the different areas were just so quotable. For example, how they covered self as context was brilliant and disturbing. Let's read a paragraph here. Now notice who's reading this book. Again, see if you can connect with the sense of looking out at the world from behind your eyes. Notice that you are here in this moment reading. And notice too that the person behind these eyes was also there when you ate breakfast this morning and was there when you were a child. You have been you your whole life. Though there have been many changes in your thoughts, your feelings, your roles, and your body. At the very moment that you gaze at these lines of ink on paper, notice who's gazing. Hello. What? It says that. It says hello in the book. I'm not like, what a mind-boggling Jesus. Ugh. Now, I've got a confession to make, and I think it's obvious that this was not the copy of the book that I was reading. You can see the spine hasn't even been broken in. This is the copy of the book I was reading, because the 20th anniversary edition, the only difference is the preface, right? So I was just reading this, and you can see I have plenty of notes here, and I've mutilated plenty of pages here. There's so much that's quotable, that's interesting, exercises that I loved, but that's not where I'm going to go next, because I could do that forever. What I wanted to go into next was another aspect of the book that I really appreciated, and that has to do with being in a position where you're learning about ACT and you're practicing ACT, but you don't necessarily have teachers that can give you feedback on your practice. This was a situation I was in for a really long time when I was first learning ACT, like 3 years. And the first 2 years that I was learning about ACT, I don't know if ACT was helpful. I mean, I really believed in it and I was really invested in it, and I think that it was helpful and profoundly helpful in many ways, but I also think in others it was like unhelpful, but I totally didn't realize it. And the reason why was because I was using ACT as a way of engaging in my own inflexibility. I mean, I would get hooked on the idea of diffusion so profoundly. Hooked isn't even the right word. It's more like harpooned. It wouldn't pull me like it would pull a sea bass. It would pull me like it would pull a whale. You know, it's just, I'd ruminate on ACT, or I'd have this hyper mindful kind of context insensitivity that is just not helpful in my relationships or not helpful for what it is I'm trying to do. There's all sorts of ways that you can use acceptance and commitment therapy to baton yourself on the head or ruminate yourself into nothingness. And one thing I really appreciated about this book is that there were so many sections where it just did not allow you to do that. So many of the traps that I found myself getting into, and that I see other people who will learn about acceptance and commitment therapy, or friends in this community get into, where they're tyrannically noticing a thought, or they're using their values as a way of beating themselves up, or I don't know, they're ruminating about the actions that they should take and what's their values. And the material in this book so often, if not subtly, then quite forwardly, acknowledges the many ways that acceptance and commitment therapy can be twisted to unworkable and inflexible means, and addresses that forwardly. And I love that. I love it. There were sections where I was just highlighting every word in the entire page because it just called the spade, and that was brilliant. I won't read them aloud, but if you want some brilliant examples of this, if you have the book, go to page 44, the section, If You're Not Willing to Have It, You Will. Absolute brilliant. I mean, just caviar. I don't eat caviar, but it looks proper and very distinguished. And so that's how I was just like, this was so eloquently done. And also, I can recommend page 189, the section on pattern smashing, and the next section on Just Because I Said So. That's in the final chapter, which is easily, without question, my favorite chapter in the book. That was for the old version of the book, by the way. For the new version of the book, I'm talking about pages 45 and pages 199 and 200. The final thing I wanted to reflect on in this video is been more personal about how I relate to this book now, because this isn't just a self-help book, and it's not just the first acceptance and commitment therapy self-help book. It's also a book written by Stephen Hayes and Spencer Smith, and that's important to me because those are two of the people that I admire and appreciate most in the world, and that's because right now they're two very personal mentors of mine. I work at the Institute for Better Health and for PsychFlex, and Stephen Hayes and Spencer Smith are my bosses. I meet with them regularly. I work with them regularly. And one of the most rewarding aspects of my job has been seeing how this material gets applied to the more everyday things. You know, we're not doing mindfulness exercises and always like clarifying our values or reflecting on diffusion. That doesn't happen. We're running a business and we're coordinating research within a nonprofit side of things, and we're trying to help people. And what's incredible is being able to be surrounded by and learn from people who are doing this kind of work in a values-based and a heartfelt and in a flexible way. I work a customer service position. That's one of the things I do at my job. And I love my job. I love it because I'm not here to brush people away. I'm here to actually help people. And there's a bunch of these kinds of things that happen in the background that no one would publicly see, but that is there, where I get to see these people these people are not only capable of doing great work, but they're those rare exceptions of people who can do great work and be a good person too. And you only need to look at the news to see how rare someone like that is nowadays. Getting to read through this book was a way of me seeing these two people that I really value and care about partly in a different way. You know, I've been asked before. I went to an ACT boot camp, and I was helping Mike running and assisting Spencer in running the event. And someone that I met at that training that's now a friend had said that they were really surprised to hear that I was working with Steve. And this person had said, you know, I had to fly across the world to be in his presence. What's it like working for him? And I remember just kind of feeling stunned. I didn't really know what to say in that moment and maybe a bit intimidated. But I've thought about it, and I later explained to that person, it feels like work. It's not. And sometimes Steve can be overly gracious, and I have to tell him not to do this. But my job is not to just be his Padawan. I'm really there because I want to make his life easier. And he's got so much going on. And so I really want to see what I can do to do what I can so that he has more time to do the things that he's best at and do the things that he really cares about within his work and outside of it. And so it feels like work, but it also feels like some of the most important work in the world. And it's the same work that person is doing. It's the same work that everyone is doing as they walk into that room. And that is the work of trying to help people, trying to make a difference. And I had told that person that what you're about to see, because this was a boot camp, right? So Steve was about to go on stage. What you're about to see is really special. It's Steve at some of his best when he's discussing his work. And that's not something that I see all the time, And so I'm going to be really enjoying watching this too. And I felt that same way about reading this book because it was Steve at some of his best. But it's also beautiful because Steve at his best is not alone. And the reason why this was some of Steve at his absolute best was because Spencer Smith was there too. And Spencer, he's more of a quiet guy. He is not a limelight kind of person. And I have to see if I can even post this video with me talking about him like this. But increasingly now, I find myself, and I've been finding myself over the past year, enormously impressed by the people who don't have big reputations or don't have as much of the spotlight on them, but that are just phenomenal people and that have tremendous amounts of wisdom to them. Because man, you can learn so much from people like that. You just have to keep your eye out. They're hidden, but you look and you're like, wow, wait a minute. You are the wisest person in the room here, or I don't know. That was really cool. That demonstrated character or whatever it was. So getting to go through this book and see this other side of them, that's not unfamiliar to me, but that I don't get as much exposure to, was also just brilliant for two of these people that I admire and appreciate that much already. I posted a video a little while ago on parkour and contextual behavioral sciences, and it got 43,000 views. And I'll tell you, I feel kind of empty about it, disinterested in it, bored with it, because I didn't make that video for 43,000 people. I made that video for you, for the members of this community, for ACBS. And the main thing that I'm taking away, having now read this book, is a sense of appreciation and pride for the work that is done in this community, where people here are carrying this legacy on and transforming this and spreading this and making it modern and increasingly relevant and increasingly accessible to people. And I just think, what a cool community to be a part of. I'll see you next time. Toodles for now.